Here is something that will permanently change how you understand and interpret every interaction from this point forward. When a woman cannot stop thinking about you, she almost never announces it directly. She does not sit you down, confess her feelings, or explain what is happening in her head. Instead, her thoughts begin to leak out through subtle behavioral shifts. Conversations start to bend in unusual directions. Her attention lingers in ways that are easy to miss if you do not know what you are looking for. I have been that woman. Before, the one replaying a conversation late at night, the one whose thoughts kept drifting back to someone who had no idea what was happening beneath the surface. These signs are not obvious or dramatic, but once you recognize them, you realize she has been communicating all along without saying it outright. One sign appears when she interrupts her own stories to ask about you. She might be halfway through, talking about her weekend, mentioning a restaurant, some friend drama, or a stressful situation, and then suddenly she stops and redirects the conversation toward you. This is not because she lost her train of thought. It happens because a question about you suddenly felt more important than finishing her own sentence. Most people miss this completely and simply answer before moving on. What actually happened? Is that you surfaced in her mind with enough force to override her narrative? While she was talking, part of her brain whispered that you mattered more in that moment, and she listened. When a woman interrupts herself to focus on you, she is showing where her attention truly lives. Her story can wait, but you cannot. Another sign shows up when she keeps circling back to a joke or comment you made days earlier. You may have said something casual or sarcastic and forgotten it almost immediately, but she brings it up again later, laughing as if it just happened. This is not about the joke itself. It is about what occurred internally after you said it. She replayed that moment more than once. That small comment became a mental bookmark that her mind flagged as important. When a woman repeatedly returns to something minor you said, she is revealing that the interaction did not end when you walked away. The conversation continued privately in her thoughts. While most people forget throwaway comments quickly, she held on to yours like a souvenir. Another indication appears when her friends already know details about you that you never personally shared with them. You meet someone close to her and within minutes they reference your job, your hometown, a recent trip, or even a specific preference you mentioned once. This happens because she talked about you across multiple conversations. Her friends absorbed those details not because they were interested in you, but because she could not stop mentioning you. When her inner circle knows fragments of your life before meeting you, you have already become a recurring presence in her private world. She is not just thinking about you. She is narrating you to the people she trusts most. Another sign is when she warns you about situations that have not happened yet. You mention a new project, a possible trip, or a future plan, and she immediately flags potential problems before you finish explaining. This is not negativity, it is projection. She is already imagining different outcomes and trying to protect the ones she emotionally cares about. Most people react with surface-level encouragement. She stress tests your plans because your future has started to feel connected to hers. When she warns you about things that have not happened, it means she is already living in hypothetical versions of your life where your outcomes matter to her. Another signal appears when she describes her schedule in a way that leaves intentional gaps. She tells you about her weekend plans in detail, then casually mentions an open window of time without fully defining it. That space is not accidental, it is reserved. She is leaving room for you to step in without having to ask directly. Most people hear this as casual conversation, but the delivery matters. When one specific pocket of time is left conspicuously open, it is a quiet invitation wrapped in caution. Another sign shows up when her playlists begin reflecting conversations you have had. You mention a song once or play it casually, and later it appears in a playlist she shares with you. She did not just remember it, she integrated it. That song became emotionally attached to you in her mind. When a woman starts weaving your references into her personal soundtrack, it means you have moved from the outside of her life to the inside. Sometimes the most honest emotions she communicates are hidden in what she chooses to listen to. Another indication appears when she corrects herself mid-sentence while describing other men. She might compliment someone briefly and then quickly downgrade the statement. This happens because she suddenly becomes aware of how her words might land with you. Her brain is tracking both the story and your perception of it at the same time. When a woman edits herself this way, it is not pettiness, it is recalibration. She does not want you to feel compared, which means she already sees you in a category separate from everyone else. Another sign emerges when you become her default example in unrelated conversations. She references you while explaining concepts or telling stories that technically have nothing to do with you. When someone becomes a default reference point, it means they have taken up permanent mental space. You are no longer just someone she knows. You have become part of how she processes the world. Another indicator appears when she asks about your childhood in fragments over time. She does not ask everything at once. Instead, she collects small details across weeks or months. She is building a map of how you became who you are. This is not curiosity for the sake of politeness. It is understanding, driven by emotional investment. Another sign is when her reactions to your jokes are slightly delayed. Others laugh immediately, but she pauses before reacting, then laughs in a way that feels more genuine. That delay means she processed the humor more deeply. She is not performing a reaction. She is having a real one. Another indication shows up when she begins using your phrases without realizing it. Language absorption happens subconsciously when someone occupies mental space. When she starts echoing your words naturally, it means your voice has been replaying in her mind long enough to leave a trace. Another sign appears when she remembers which friends you have not mentioned recently. She notices patterns in your stories and tracks the people in your life. This level of attention shows that your world has started to feel connected to hers. Another indicator is when her phone stays face down while she is with you. She creates a physical boundary between distractions and the moment you are sharing. That small gesture signals that your presence matters more than outside interruptions. Another sign appears when she brings up hypotheticals that always include you. She frames them casually, but you are always part of the scenario. These are not random thoughts. They are emotional rehearsals for a future she is quietly testing. Another indication shows up in how long she lingers before hanging up the phone. The conversation technically ends, but she delays the goodbye. She is resisting the moment where your voice disappears from her environment. Another sign appears when she talks about places she wants to go, using language that already includes you. She uses words like we without asking first. In her mind, the experience is already shared. Another signal shows up when she apologizes for things she did not do wrong. These apologies come from care, not insecurity. She wants to get it right with you specifically. Another indicator is when her body turns toward you before the conversation even begins. Physical orientation reveals a tension that the mind has already decided on. Another sign appears when she remembers the sequence of events in your stories better than you do. That level of retention only happens with emotionally meaningful information. Another indication is when she asks for your opinion before she finishes explaining her own thoughts. Your perspective has become part of her internal decision-making process. Recognizing these signs does not mean confronting her or forcing a moment that is not ready. It simply means understanding that her mind has already made space for you in quiet, repeated ways she may not fully acknowledge yet. When this happens, her attention eventually shifts from passive to intentional. If those signals are missed, she assumes disinterest and emotionally steps back. Awareness is what keeps the door open.